So here's another update to Vertex Skin Weights, and this is a very necessary update for performance and then also supporting multiple armatures on the same mesh. On certain meshes, especially if it's imported from Unreal Engine or from especially game assets where there's things like double faces and it's not your traditional clean geometry in Blender, sometimes it struggles to navigate those meshes, and it ended up slowing down the system for some users. So I got to the bottom of it. So I made some general performance improvements that it shouldn't slow down your interface anymore, even on heavier meshes. But also now you can switch off the auto update of the bones list over here if you want to just go back to selecting vertices and things like that. So here's an example of that. So this is not a mesh that particularly slows it down. It was definitely worse on imported meshes and meshes with double faces, or so-called dirty meshes, but those are fairly common if you're working in a game, so it's an issue that needed to be fixed anyway. If you go in here and let me just show an example of this. So if I go into edit mode here and I select something like, on my square tool, I make selections, it's hardly noticeable, this update. But if you go then and you go into selection, which you might do if you're still editing the mesh and stuff, you'll see my mouse is kind of slowed down. And this slowdown was way worse on kind of like a dirty mesh, but you can still pick it up here. So for those kind of situations, and if you do find you want to do stuff and the add-on is slowing you down, you can just click this auto update bones list and you click that off. And now you see your selection and everything is back up to speed, because it's not trying to update this bones list with every change in the selection. So it basically just speeds up your workflow if you're not needing the add-on. And if you work in a very heavy mesh, and especially if I go here, I make this radius bigger, you'll see here, especially if you're selecting a bunch of stuff at the same time, and I switch this back on, you know, this can really slow down your system. You get these kind of like jumps, and it is far worse on dense meshes. So in those cases, just switch this off and this will stop updating. And if you do update, you'll get a warning now that your list is not updated. You need to do a manual update. In those cases, you just press here to do a manual update. You'll see here it changes here to, it's just your weighted bones that you need to click, and then if you do your selection, and you just need to manually update again so it doesn't slow you down for your selections. So it just gives you extra options and extra performance when you need it. Also, when this is off, you can either just click here to update your list, or you can just click on this button, weighted bones manual update then, and it will update your list every time you change your selection. Okay, so I hope that helps with performance. And the other issue there was basically if people are using add-ons like Faceit and you've got multiple armatures on one mesh, Vertex Skin Weights only picked up the first modifier on your list. So let me show you this. Yeah, so I set up a little test scene here. Now this scene has got multiple armatures. So it's got that armature and that armature. And if you check on the mesh over here, you'll see it's got more than one armature modifier on it. So for those kind of cases, and this is basically if you've got a separate face rig to your body rig, you know, and things like that. Now Vertex Skin Weights should be able to handle those as well. And you handle that by going up here, and then you can click on your target armature modifier. And here you can pick then on which of these you actually want to work on at the time, and it will bring up the bones list over here. If you want to still see everything that's happening in your entire mesh, if you click here on all bones, it will show you all the armatures that things are assigned to with their separate values on those vertices. But now if you say on the first armature over here, these will be grayed out. So you can select them to see where they are, but when you start editing and trying to do anything, so if I try to plus there, it just disappears again. So it's purely there so you can see what's happening, and then you can see where the bones are, but you can't actually edit these values when you're in a different armature or pointing it to one of these armatures over here. So if you want to work on these individual ones, just select them up here, and then you can work on multiple armature modifiers within your mesh, not just the first one like before. So there's just one thing I want to add if working with multiple armatures on the same mesh. So here we got the two different armatures over here, armature and armature 001, but these two has got a bone that's got exactly the same name. And you'll see here it actually shares one vertex group over here. So in these cases, when you edit things here, it might have unintended consequences. So I added this warning over here to say you've got a duplicate bone name. And this is just to give you a warning that the edits you do with these on these groups, or even if you're working on other ones and it's trying to normalize to this one, it might have unintended consequences. So it's much better to give these unique names so you don't have conflicts, because in Blender, unfortunately, it just creates a vertex group according to the bone names, and these now share the same vertex group. And this is inherently something in Blender itself that I can't do anything about. So just be careful if you have multiple armatures, to have unique bone names. Otherwise, when you start editing, it might have weird consequences. Okay, cheers.